This is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Welcome to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Your host, Felice Gerwitz, is an author, a publisher, and your radio show host. She will encourage, educate, and inspire you with answers to your most pressing questions from homeschool, marriage, parenting, and much more. Felice loves to equip moms to live a Christian life because every moment counts. Be sure to visit her website at mediaangels.com. And here's your host, Felice Gerwitz.
Hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Felice Gerwitz, and today we're jumping into another part in our series on finding the best curriculum from a Christian perspective. Last time we talked about homeschooling rock stars raising kingdom builders and why homeschooling works. If you missed it, check out the show notes at vintagehomeschoolmoms.com. Look for episode 554, and that's the Homeschool Rockstars one. Today we are talking about faith-filled learning, and you can find that at the same website. I also want to give a shout out to our sponsor, and that is CTC Math. If you've listened to this podcast for a while, you will find that CTC Math is one of our ongoing sponsors. So if you could, go visit their website at tcmath.com and check out their wonderful curriculum. My grandkids use their math curriculum and really like it, and they thank me every time they see me. That's a little bit rare for kids to be happy about their math program, so check them out. And also, if you like this episode, please share it with a friend. All right, so today we're going to discuss how you can integrate your faith into learning and also have some balance, so you can work on the structure or lack of structure if you want some freedom and foster independence, and the importance of building community and tackling those inevitable homeschool challenges. You know, as homeschool moms, I think a lot of times it's overwhelming because not only do you have to balance home and all of the things that go along with that, but also add another element and you become your child's teacher. Not only that, you're their mentor, you're their mom, and everything else. And so when you think about it, you know, take one little segment at a time. If this podcast is something you agree with, then dive in. If it's not, just take what works for you. So many times we hear a speaker and we think we have to integrate every single thing into our lives. And what I found with homeschool moms is that we're a pretty independent lot. So the good news is you can make it work on your own time and with the resources that you have available. My husband and I mentor engaged couples at our church, and one lady asked me an excellent question. She asked how we're able to encourage our child in their faith without being pushy. And it made me really think. I found that the answer is built into parts of this podcast. We lived out our faith, and it was an example to our children. And they also realized, this couple did, that that's what they wanted for their kids. We wanted our kids to grow up not only loving each other, but loving God. And love for the Lord is a life balance. Whether you're a seasoned homeschooler or just starting out, I am so happy that you joined me today because I feel like this is a very powerful topic and one that I've been meaning to record, and just really am happy that I had the time to do it today. So, living our faith and learning, how do the two work together? How do we integrate faith into learning? Well, as Christian homeschoolers, our faith isn't parked at the door. It's not on a shelf. It's who we are. Christ lives within us, and every subject can be part of the miracles of our Creator God. God is truth. Take science. Studying creation can spark awe for the Creator. Like Psalm 19 says, the heavens declare the glory of God. And if you want an astronomy curriculum, I happen to have written one. We're actually in the process of updating some of our book lists, but the content is really strong. And even if you buy a book now, when the updates come up, all you have to do is email me through the website and we'll get you another copy. So the heavens do declare the glory of God, and that is an important aspect of your teaching. And what about history? Well, have you ever heard it called his story? Well, history is his story, and it unfolds. And it's amazing to study not only Bible history, but regular history and see how much God plays a part. Even math shows God's order and consistency. Methods like the classical approach love this. It's all about connecting big ideas to big truths, often through a biblical lens, or the Charlotte Mason method, with its focus on living books, reading stories that reflect virtue in God's design. The key is weaving faith naturally into the day, not just tacking it on with the Bible study at the beginning or the end. Not to put down Bible studies at all, because we did several. One of my favorites was a Bible timeline where we read scriptures and talked about the scriptures in a chronological order. It really gave the kids a perspective of the scriptures, and as adults, they have told me that they've gone back and reread. I think 3 of my children have done that. Well, true confessions, I did do Bible teachings every morning, and so I did do it as a standalone, but I wanted to start our day, especially when they were eating breakfast, by reading something, either a Bible verse to them or a book that had a little, deeper thoughts for the day, or a little mini sermon, if you will. And so while they were eating breakfast, we usually did part of our Bible study. And as I said, we did the Bible timeline. It was pinned to the wall, and we added to it as we studied different periods of Bible history and also different periods of history. So we could put historical figures up on the timeline, and they were able to see that. At one point, we took it off the wall, and they had books that also had their Bible timeline. But I really liked it when it was up on the wall, because it helped us to have that visual every day. Deuteronomy 6 reminds us to talk about God's ways all the time. So whether it's nature, or a nature walk, or even a multiplication table, we can show our children how it ties back to God. The amazing thing about children is they catch on quickly, and soon you're going to have children pointing out aspects of their studies that show God's glory, and it's really beautiful to see. Homeschooling gives us that freedom. It also gives us the freedom to structure our classroom in the way that works for our family. And this can be overwhelming. I've done many podcasts on scheduling and organizing. I even, I can't believe I did this, but when I think back, I even took a picture of my messy, horrible shelves before I adjusted and, reworked them with the kids and got them all organized. Because a lot of times what happens is we might start the year with some structure and organization, but then as the years go by, it's easier to just throw the book on the shelf than it is to put it where it needs to go. And really, there's a balance there. If there's too much structure, your kids can feel bored or boxed in, or too little, and there's no sense of organization or direction. Some of us thrive with a structured approach, a traditional method, and some of you use textbooks and workbooks, and others consider, that to be wonderful and to have that precise schedule. We've actually done both. We really thrived with a schedule, and if things got moved, fine. We didn't do a math lesson one day because we got sidetracked with studying science, so that was fine. They could do an extra lesson, or they would bring me their books and I would circle the problems that they needed to do. And that's another great thing about homeschooling, is that, if you want to abbreviate a lesson or dive deeper, you can do that. Most kids thrive when there is a routine, and a routine is different than structure and a time schedule. Having a routine, like, for example, before school starts and how you begin your day, really helps. So what do? For me, it was getting up and having a little bit of time for prayer. I'd come out, get my coffee, and go back in my bedroom and pray a few minutes before the kids got up. And then, of course, it was breakfast, having the kids brush their teeth, having our short Bible session, some of which I read while they were eating, and then some after we got up to our schoolroom, and then, we started our school day. We always started with prayer, and that helped to set the tone. And so, I added the Pledge of Allegiance, my 2 years of teaching in the school system. That was one of the things, I don't know if they still do it today, but that was one of the things that I enjoyed as a teacher. And we had a little flag, and the kids took turns holding the flag. When they got older, the flag was mounted. And, I kind of felt as the years went by that, it was so cute when they wanted to hold the flag. And it was so cute when we had the little poster where they would, move the little weather to what the weather was for the day, or the little magnetic board. And they, moved the little calendar thing over so that we could track what day it was and learn how to spell. And as the kids got older, and of course those things got handed down to other people, or later to the grandchildren, because I like to keep things that are nice and pass them on. But it was sad, that nobody was fighting over holding the flag. So if you've got that season in your life where kids are fighting over who can hold the flag or who can start prayers or whatever that is, please enjoy the season, because as everyone always tells you, it goes too fast. Routines are easier to remember for me, and especially because it helps your body rhythm. I've really been studying a lot about nutrition because it's important to me. And I'm going to be doing some podcasts on that in the upcoming days. We did start some podcasts on health and nutrition, and some of those didn't get completed because I worked with a friend of mine who got super busy. She lives up in Minnesota. And so we're hoping to bring some of those back for, healthy living and just some things that you can do with your children. I love Proverbs 16:9 that says, "We plan our way, but the Lord directs our steps." So set a framework, maybe daily Bible readings or math drills, but leave room for God. One day my plans got derailed by a deep discussion about forgiveness after sibling quality. And that is flexibility. It's wonderful. Finding the rhythm that keeps you sane and your kids growing is so important. What about learning? Well, some parents have other things that they have to accomplish each day, and I was one of them. I helped my husband with his construction business, often with invoicing and payroll. And my goal at that point in time was to teach more facts. And it also was to teach more than just facts. So I wanted to do both. And I also wanted to foster independent learning. I wanted to raise kids who loved learning and would seek God independently. I wanted kids who started out with my faith but made it their own choice. I had a lot of aspirations for my children, and I know you do too. So I began small, and I gave my kids some flashcards to study, and then I had a big chart of birds. I still have it because my daughter doesn't want it, who's homeschooling, and I just cannot get rid of the bird charts. They just hold such a special memory for me because I had these huge laminated charts, and I would point to the different birds, and the kids were sitting far enough back so they couldn't see the names written under each one, so they couldn't just read it. And one was wild birds, and one was water birds, because we live in Southwest Florida, so we've got some, a pond and sometimes standing water depending on the season. And so the kids just memorized those charts, and I would just have them go practice on their own. Same thing with multiplication, same thing with some of their consonant sounds, or consonant blends. So I started small, and I gave the kids time to think. And this meant that when they were done with their requirements, they could go explore things of interest to them. And I always encouraged the children, as one of my kids said, "Well, Mom, you used to just bribe us." And I said, "No, I gave you an incentive. There's a difference between bribing and giving you an incentive. So if you don't get your work done, that means you're going to have to sit there and continue till you're finished. Or you can work and get done and then go do something of interest to you." And I often ask open-ended questions for them to research and explore. So this doesn't mean we leave them totally to their own devices, okay? Maybe your kid's a self-starter and can do that. But if you don't check up on them, it will be amazing what they're doing, like trying to sneak a video or doing something else that you may not want them to do. And I was really blessed because we didn't have televisions in every room. My kids didn't have cell phones or access to them even when they were home, when they were a little bit older. Everyone had a spot to put their phone when they walked in, when they were driving age. And so I really kept close tabs on all of that. Ephesians 4:11 through 12 talks about equipping the saints for works of service, and that's our kids too. At one point, my daughter was interested in getting a theology degree and audited a college-level class while still in high school. And this came about because of an intense class we studied at home and because I gave her space. It's not about handing them a curriculum and walking away. It's about guiding them to their own learning. And that's what discipleship in action really is about. It's preparing them for a lifetime of following Christ. She ended up not going that route, but it gave her that opportunity to learn more. What about building supportive communities? Well, finding others who want the same thing for their children is also important when you homeschool. Homeschooling is growing, and finding like-minded friends can be a challenge. I was frustrated at one point of my homeschool journey, and I prayed to the Lord, and I asked Him to send me friends, and He did. These are lifelong friends that I still cherish and have today, and I am so blessed. So many times, especially where I live, people come and go. They move here for a season, and then they're gone. And this happened to my daughter, actually several of my children, where their friends were here for a short period of time and then moved away. And so we always cherish our home as the first place where my children feel comfortable and have their friends, which are their siblings. And even though everyone longs for friends, and it is important, like I said, I'm just blessed because the Lord actually answered my prayer. But sometimes homeschooling can feel isolated. But God designed us for fellowship. Hebrews 10:24 through 25 urges us to spur one another on. Co-ops are huge in homeschooling, whether it's a classical group doing Socratic discussions or an eclectic group of parents swapping skills, or even my daughter started a Shakespeare group where she and her friends read Shakespeare and, discussed it. So it doesn't matter, where the fellowship originates, but if you can foster it, it is great. And we have a Facebook group for our homeschool podcast community. And if you have ever led a Facebook group or would like to help with my group, please contact me, and I would love for you to give me, some ideas or credentials, or if you've done it before, because we have a very large group, and it seems like sometimes it's difficult for the conversations to get going, but at one point it was very vibrant. And not only that, but the other podcasters at the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network belong to it. And combined, there is such a wealth of information in that group. Even if you go to the park with other homeschoolers, that counts. We just went on a nature walk not that long ago, just as a family, all the grandkids, and my son was home. He's in the military now, my youngest, and we just had the best time. I've been to this nature walk so many times in the past, and it was just nice getting out there, even when it was just family. A friend of mine, Meredith Curtis, who also has a podcast on this network, and I talked about what our homeschooling looked like when we had little children. And she talked about swapping babysitting time. Sometimes the other mom would say, I want to be able to get to the grocery store and get out without it taking so long. And so they swapped babysitting for each other. And she said she ended up just going to the park and having time to pray and praise God because she just needed that one-on-one with the Lord. Whatever you use your swapping for, it could be someone who, knows a foreign language or another mom who teaches piano. It can give you a break if that's what you need. And it's really a win-win. Community also keeps us accountable. It's someone to pray with you, someone, to encourage you when you're doubting yourself. I hope you come to this network often because a lot of our podcasts are all about that, and that is encouraging. Look for families who share your faith and values. It's not just about the kids. It's about us parents too, and staying encouraged. God uses others to lift us up, so try not to skip this important aspect. I know sometimes in homeschool communities, things can get toxic. People, have an opinion and think everybody needs to do what they're doing, and that is wonderful. But it can be overwhelming, especially if we feel that pressure. I never had that pressure to conform. I didn't, really let that get to me. But often I know it's out there. So again, come to our group. Our Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network has a private Facebook group, and you can join it. And I'd love to chat with you. Just be sure to tag my name, Felice Gerwitz, for a response. And I'll put that link in the show notes. Homeschooling has so many benefits, but there are challenges as well, if we're honest. And managing homeschool challenges is one way that not only will help us grow, but shows our children that we stand by our faith in God even when things get hard. The biggest thing we can do, we can get the kids the best curriculum, we can give them the best schooling that's out there that money can buy, but if they don't see our faith in action, then they are not going to, really grasp the importance of that. Each one of us has days when the kids won't focus and the math book is lost for the 10,000th time and the house is a mess and you're questioning everything. And that is normal. Burnout does happen. So it's important to give yourself a little bit of peace and space. I also recorded a peaceful homeschool podcast, and I'll put the link in the show notes. But why does burnout happen? Have you thought about that? Often it's because we're stuck in a method that doesn't work. For me, it was a traditional method and a schedule when I was more of a unit studies method person. Never even heard of unit studies until I started homeschooling. And as I shared in a previous podcast, I didn't want my kids to fall behind. So it took me a few years of homeschooling to plunge into unit studies. So step back, pray, and ask the Lord for help, and He will. James 1:5 promises wisdom if we ask. And all of us have had doubts. Don't let the evil one rob you of your happiness. Thoughts like, oh, am I enough? Am I going to be able to do it? Oh, my kids are going to be a failure. My husband, is upset with me. Whatever that is. And I'm going to do a spoiler alert here. You're not alone. You're not enough, but God is. So lean on Him. None of us is enough, and none of us can do it without the Lord. I started a praise journal in my lowest point, and I started writing all of the things I was happy for. And there were very few things to begin with, to be honest. So I'd look outside and go, oh, Lord, I'm happy for the beautiful clouds you've given me because those are free. And it was a time where we had a little bit of a financial hardship. When I say a little bit, it lasted quite a few years. We were in the construction industry in 2008 when everything went bottom up in that industry. And so all of our livelihood revolved around that. And so we really had to tighten our belts and really look at everything that we were buying and spending money on and just taking all of those things out of our lives. And it was a difficult time. And in the midst of this, homeschooling, so we really started appreciating all God had done for us in our lives. And the children, I remember, wanted to buy a dog. And I said, look, we do not have any extra funds for a dog. So they ended up finding a rescue, and they pulled all of their money together and spent $100 on this dog, which ended up becoming a beloved pet and, died a couple of years ago. But, they always reminded me that they spent the money on this dog. And I said, yes, I know. I wish that was all the dog's cost. But it was a blessing in our lives in a time when even the children pulled together to help out. Look around you. What are the things that are working well today? Just today. Don't think about the past. Don't look for the future. And just look at today. For example, the kids get a fraction, finally figure out fractions, or one of your children prays on their own or prays for a sibling. Or when your husband comes home early and offers to take the kids out to play when you finish dinner. Or offers to finish it for you. It's a lifeline for those tough days. Challenges don't mean failure. They're chances to trust God more. And after many years of homeschooling, I have to say, again, please cherish these days. Homeschooling is wild, and it's a beautiful ride, and God's right there with us. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Drop me a note if this resonates with you. You can do that on the show notes at the website at vintagehomeschoolmoms.com. And next time we'll explore another angle of this journey. We're going to be talking about some homeschool curriculum. Until then, keep pointing your family to Christ, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Visit Felice at MediaAngels.com and TheVintageHomeschoolMoms.com. Vintage Homeschool Moms is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.